Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today on Destination International's monthly Small Destination Organization webinar. Today's topic will be Destination Next for Small Destinations. My name is Kate Skidmore, and I'm the Senior Director of Membership Engagement with Destination International. We're so excited to see so many familiar faces on the call today and to welcome so many new to the group. We're joined by Melissa Laughlin, who is the CEO and Chair of our Small Destination Task Force and Fearless Leader. Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Great, Kate. Thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who joined us for the call.
Thanks, Melissa. I think we're just saying almost a dozen into these monthly webinars, so we're just so excited about seeing the momentum of this group. But I'd like to welcome Kathleen Frankfurt, who is the VP of Marketing for MMGY and Next Factor. Thanks, Kathleen, for leading us off today.
Of course, and thank you for having me. Kate and Melissa, I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks to everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules. I'm a former DMO leader myself, and I know how crazy it can be, especially a smaller destination where you don't have a large team and you're playing wearing many hats. So I do appreciate you taking the time. I'm really excited to be. Oh, I'm sorry, Kate.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say one thing before you go in.
Yes.
Just a quick housekeeping before you launch in. So everyone that's on the call, this webinar is being recorded, and Kathleen will lead us through the exciting presentation with our guest panelists. But as you have any questions, feel free to type those into the question box, and we'll be monitoring those with some time at the end to unmute you. And of course, for any follow-up with the DNext team, we'll go ahead and make that connection. So thanks so much, Kathleen. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kate. Really excited to be talking about how we've adapted our Destination Next program to suit the needs of smaller destinations. And I mentioned I am a former DMO leader. I was president of Discover Lancaster, which a bit of a larger budget than many of you may have, around $3 million. But I was also tourism director for Cumberland Valley Visitors Bureau in Pennsylvania. So our budget was under $1 million there. So excited to talk about what's going on in the small destination world, and also very excited that I've got two great leaders who will be joining me today. I'll be talking a little bit later, but I'd like to introduce Marsha Massey, who's the Executive Director of the Olympic Peninsula Visitors Bureau, and Darren Rudloff, who is CEO of Visit Cheyenne. Both Marsha and Darren have gone through the Destination Next process. Actually, Darren has gone through it twice. So we'll be getting their feedback in terms of how it affected their destination, what made them decide to do it in the first place, and also, get their opinion on this new Small Destination Next product. When Marsha and Darren went through Destination Next, it was our traditional Destination Next. So again, this product is just being launched. We haven't conducted it in any destinations yet, but really want to get their feedback in terms of how they think this will work for some of the smaller DMOs out there. So before I get into the changes that we've made, just want to give an overview of Destination Next for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Whenever we talk about Destination Next, we usually talk about the two main components, which is the future study and the scenario model. But I added the workshop as a third component because it is such a critical part of the process. Destination Next was started in 2014 when Destinations International saw the need for this type of assessment. It did not exist. And they hired Paul Ouimet, who is president of MMGY Next Factor, to create this assessment. And he worked with a committee from Destinations International and continues to refine this product. The future study is the most comprehensive research effort available on all tourism trends. And if any of you are hearing about this for the first time, you definitely need to be aware of this study. It's free for everybody. It is on the Destinations International website. It's an extremely comprehensive research effort, and we update it every 2 years. We just released the most recent results in July at the annual convention in St. Louis. We get feedback from over 500 leaders, thought leaders, disruptors, DMO leaders from all over the world. And It really lets you know what you need to be focusing on as a leader in order to maintain, your economic impact in your community. So we use the future study as part of this assessment. We have the actual scenario model, and that's when you're getting feedback from your stakeholders, your customers, legislators, your board, your staff, and you're really getting a good feel for what are the opportunities in your destination and what are the challenges. So the scenario model is essentially that self-assessment that you're taking, but you're engaging so many people in your community. It's a wonderful community engagement tool. And then everything culminates in the actual workshop. So we schedule about a 3.5-hour workshop where we present the future study highlights. We present your results in detail and show you on the scenario model and how you fit in. And then we have a great collaborative discussion about what needs to happen in your destination to take advantage of the opportunities that you have and to mitigate the challenges. So a lot of people, when we do this workshop, we do it with a board of directors, possibly the leadership team or the entire staff. We've also had DMOs do it with 50 to 60 people. So some DMOs have invited everybody who has completed one of their surveys to this workshop in order to engage them and to get more feedback. So it's just a really great process. So in terms of the assessment, we look at two main factors, community alignment and the development of your destination. And then depending on where you fall, you would be in one of these 4 categories. So you can see the trailblazer categories where everybody wants to be, because that's showing strong community alignment and that you're a fully developed destination or are very strong in that area. The reality is most DMOs are not trailblazers. They're in one of the other 3. So we work with you to develop strategies to get you into that trailblazer category. And if you're already in the trailblazer category, we work with you to make sure you're staying in that category or continuing to grow. So these are the variables that fall under destination strength. So you can see they run from brand to air access to conventions and meeting facilities. And then under community alignment, we take things into consideration like your workforce, your hospitality culture, your partnership strength, funding support. So we've done a lot of these, clearly, and we've had the opportunity to work with over 300 destinations from all over the world. The great thing about this is we've compiled a ton of case studies. I think we have about 300 case studies. So when we're talking to you about the challenges and the opportunities in your destination, we can pull from other destinations that have experienced the same thing or possibly had the same challenge. So not that you would just take that and replicate that for you, because every destination is different, but to give you inspiration to create something like that, to solve, to go about problem solving in possibly a similar way. So I've always felt that, one of the keys to success is to see what smart people are doing and be inspired by it, and that's what our case studies strive to do. So we've done a lot of these assessments, of course, over 200 in 11 countries, and a lot are in the works. So Small Destination Next, how does Small Destination Next differ from our regular Destination Next program? Well, this is the criteria for being in Small Destination Next. You would have an annual budget of $2 million or less, and you would not be considered a resort destination. So the reason that we created this program, that we've adapted, modified the regular Destination Next assessment, is because we realize that smaller destinations have different needs. And we've done a lot of research over the past several years. We've been doing this for 5 years now, and we've heard from the people who we've worked with on Destination Next. We've heard from small DMO leaders. We've gotten input on this program from Melissa Berkeley Young, who works with a lot of small DMOs, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't unfairly penalizing a destination just because they don't have an airport or just because they don't have a convention center. So we've changed the questions, we've adapted things so that it's more customized to this smaller group. So these are just some examples. Looking at the weighting of leisure travelers versus meetings and conventions. Again, a lot of small DMOs don't have a convention center. A lot of them don't have an airport, and they may not care if they don't have an airport because they might be a drive destination. Some small destinations don't have a lot of strength behind their advocacy efforts, and they're dealing with multi-jurisdictional issues. So they may have multiple communities within their destination, all of which probably have a different type of personality and different strengths and weaknesses. So the survey's been adapted to address all of these things. And I want to just give you an example. Going back to these destination strength variables that you see in front of you, you can see conventions and meeting facilities, air access, international readiness. These are all things that may not apply to these smaller DMOs. So it's not that we just remove those categories from the survey, but we adapt them, we word them differently. We get a bit more specific so that you're not penalized for not having those types of assets in your destination. So the first thing that we changed is the approach, and then the second thing that we've changed is that basically the results for any small destination who goes through Small Destination Next is compared to other destinations in this set. So right now, if you're a small DMO and you go through the process, again, with any destination, we tailor the survey somewhat. We make sure that it makes sense for your destination. We work with you to edit that and to take things out that don't make sense, add things in that you want to do a deeper dive on. But you're compared to all of the destinations in the US, if that's where you're located, or in Canada, if that's where you're located. So with Small Destination Next, you'll be compared to other destinations that are very similar in size to you and that have similar challenges and opportunities. So this is a brand new thing that we're launching, and it's just a great opportunity to be involved with something from the ground up, and a smaller destination to see how you compare to other destinations of your size, so that you're not comparing yourselves to the Austins or the Pittsburghs of the world and some of these larger communities that it may not be as balanced. So participating destinations receive a detailed PowerPoint, includes the general overview slides, and it also includes all of the detail of your specific results. So why do this? This is the only comprehensive analytical tool that will benchmark several competitive variables against other smaller destinations. So again, some of the benefits include it helps you identify weaknesses and areas of improvement, challenges and opportunities. And very often we see when somebody goes through this Destination Next assessment, it really shows you the low-hanging fruit. So you can immediately develop some strategies to take advantage of some things that could have very, very fast impact in your destination. It's also a very powerful advocacy tool. If you think about it, think about going to your legislators and saying, you know what, we need this in our community. We need more special events, or we need more investment into transportation. Think about if you're going to your legislators with that type of information, having the backing of a full community-wide assessment so that you can say, it's not just me who thinks we need this. Look at the 100 people who completed this survey, which includes a mix of tourism and economic development and business, etc. It just gives you that much more credibility. It expands local understanding of tourism. It really grows regional collaboration, because you're reaching out and collaborating just by going through the survey and inviting other people outside your industry to participate. And again, provides great input into strategic plans, master plans. It's really the first step that you should take. I get asked a lot, when we're going through this process, well, what have other communities done? Probably about 60% of the people that do a Destination Next assessment go right into a strategic plan. It just makes sense. And in 2 days, we can do a workshop, strategic plan all together, and you're set for the next 3 years. A lot of people use it as the impetus for a master plan. They'll see things in their results that they themselves can't control. They realize that they need collaboration with outside entities, and it gives them the idea and really the backing to develop a master plan that really is just such a collaborative community-wide effort, or creating a destination strategy or some type of community engagement program. So in terms of the pricing, we wanted to come up with something that was easy and affordable. So for small DMOs, the price is just a little bit under $8,000, and we would add on travel expenses. That's the only add-on. And that includes everything from the survey prep administration down to the workshop, down to recommendations that we make for what strategies you need to implement to address your gaps and opportunities. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to start with Marsha, if I may, just to ask her a little bit about her experience in terms of, why did you decide to do Destination Next, and what were some of the key takeaways as a result of, going through this experience?
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I appreciate that, and hello to all the colleagues out there. Your question of why did we decide to do Destination Next, just a quick summary. We are a rural, regional destination covering a very large geography with small budget. We include multiple municipalities, tribes, and public lands. So we have a lot of players and a lot of voices and a lot of opinions. And we had come to a point where there were a lot of different voices and opinions about what were some of the trends we should be addressing, what were some of the impacts, what were our priorities. And it just felt very overwhelming to try to herd the cats, as it were. So I had an opportunity, actually in a very short window of time, I had an opportunity to sit in on a Destination Next presentation with another DMO who invited me to sit in. He said, I think you might find this useful. Immediately followed up by hearing Paul Ouimet speak at DMA West. And I just realized that this was exactly what we needed. This was going to be the tool and the process that was going to help us get I would say, structured and informed way to kind of corral the conversations, to help bring us to some strategic planning. And it was important to me to find that sort of third-party, knowledgeable, authoritative source to guide the conversation, so that it wasn't just me saying, well, I think this is what we need to do. It was very engaging. People felt like they could be heard. And the value of having that come from someone else, I felt was really important.
That's fantastic, and that's a great point, because again, when you have that third-party validation, just makes the results that much more critical. Speaking from my experience, we were a very data-driven organization, all about research, marketing research, in terms of brand development and some of the other things that we were doing. But I heard from our community that, we get the whole data-driven thing, but we want to give our input as well. So people always want to be heard. So that was really, really critical. So what did you do with the results, and what were some of the big takeaways as a result of going through this process?
Well, immediately it became the focal point of our annual tourism summit. So we did this on a pretty short time frame. Sometimes the right idea comes and you just say, great, let's make this happen. So we had a pretty short time frame, but it became the engagement point and the focal point for our annual tourism summit. I think the big takeaways for us, one was the perspective. I thought that the trends and future study were extremely beneficial. It gave people a bigger perspective, and it showed us that we weren't so unique. I mean, we're all unique, but, the challenges we face or the issues that we're looking at, you sort of see that, gee, there's a lot of other people facing these same things, so we're not walking this way alone. It provided a really good self-assessment for us. Obviously, you go through the surveys and you get that overall assessment. So that was really important for us to see what our destination strengths were. No big surprises, and that was a good thing. That was the one thing I remembered when we shared the results just prior to the summit. Some of our key leaders said, great, there are no big surprises, and that's good. But it validated certain things, and then it opened up opportunities, I think, in others. And I think the big part was just the community engagement, giving people that platform to feel that they had participated and had been heard. We sent out the survey to about 300 stakeholders plus or minus, and we had 170 people respond, which I felt was great. And out of that came the value of, I think really the big takeaway was the value of a tourism master plan, and 88% of the people said we need one, and so we're headed in that direction.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And your response rate is really, really fantastic. We that may be a question we do get that question a lot when we're talking about Destination Next. Our typical response rate on the survey is probably anywhere between 20 and 30%. The survey is very comprehensive. It could take 20 to 25 minutes to complete, but it's wonderful. You must certainly have a very engaged community to get such a high response rate. Marsha, you mentioned the timing. Typically, as we go through the process, we tell people it could take, 2 to 3 months, maybe a little bit closer to, 2 to 2.5 months. Do you recall, how long your process took?
I do, and Jordan's on the phone, and he will probably remember our endless phone calls and emails. Mm-hmm. But I would not. I would say that Destination Next was fantastic in working with us on what was a pretty tight time frame. I think from the time we signed the contract to the workshop was about 12 or 13 weeks. Mm-hmm. So we moved right along on that. I would say if you have a little more elbow room, that's great, but we got it done in about 12 weeks.
And Marsha, did you handle most of the coordination on your end, or did you have somebody assisting you in your organization?
I handled most of the outreach with my my office manager. So we started talking this up before we ever sent the survey out. So we told people it was coming. We told them what we were going to do. We sent them communications to let them know what we were going to do. And we really tried to engage some of our partners in the other municipalities, in the other counties or cities or the tribes, and say, we're going to send it to you and you need to send it out further. So that was sort of the way that we did it. But we built up an email list and we just sort of kept after people.
Terrific. Really, really good. I know that some people get concerned, again, having a small staff and just being so time starved. Do we really have the time to do this? And we make the process very seamless. When I went through it, I was the main point of contact at my organization. Again, just working with Next Factor was really seamless for me, and as busy as I was, and I know all of you are busy as well, and just juggling so many things at once, it was very seamless because we help you every step of the way. So thank you, Marsha. I'm switching over to Darren, but I am going to come back to you. So if you could just stay, hold on.
I'm right here.
Thank you. So Darren, this is really interesting. You've gone through Destination Next twice, and we recommend that destinations go through the process every 3 years. And we're right now, since we're about 4 or 5 years old, we're going through and we're doing a lot of second assessments. So Darren, tell me about, why you decided to do DNext, and tell me about the experience of doing it a second time, and how did that impact your results?
Well, thanks, Kathleen. And just for everyone's background, Cheyenne is the capital of Wyoming, and our county has a population of around 100,000. So that's the size we are discussing. I was on the Destinations International Foundation Board, so I would hear Paul Ouimet's presentations about the Futures Study and the Destination Next process early on. So we were actually one of the first destinations to go through the process, and we went through it for the same reasons that Marsha outlined, to get on top of the major trends and issues in the industry, to do a deep dive analysis of our community. So we did our first Destination Next process in the fall of 2015. So we did everything just like Marsha and Kathleen described. We sent the survey out, we got the results back, and we ended up being in the Voyager category, where many smaller destinations tend to be. That is a little bit, we were above average in terms of community alignment, community support, but we were under average in terms of destination strength. We did do a full community workshop where we invited elected officials, the media, everyone that did the survey. So we had about 70 people participating in a full workshop to analyze the results. So you can analyze the results and really get quite detailed on things like our downtown needs work. Here's a strength that we can make even stronger. Here's something we need to try to mitigate. And we saw, I guess, instant credibility of the process or benefits of the process in a number of areas. First of all, like Marsha said, there weren't many major surprises, but you did get a targeted list of issues that you really needed to work on, where you ranked below national averages, and members of your community, business community, hospitality community, elected officials, everyone agreed that these are things that we really under average on. We're not really pleased with how we're doing on these issues. So you really do create a list, an itemized list of factors, of issues that you can work on, you identify them, and the survey gives those issues legitimacy because, again, it's not just your DMO saying these issues, it's a major survey that people are doing all over the world. During the week we did our survey, the DestinationNEXT team also did workshops in Geneva and Birmingham, Alabama. So to have those two cities alongside Cheyenne it gave the process legitimacy that we were using the same process that major destinations are using, and it gave those issues legitimacy. It also gave Visit Cheyenne quite a bit of legitimacy in the eyes, I think, of the community because, again, it wasn't just us speaking. We were doing something that was being used worldwide. It gave us legitimacy, and it engaged our civic leaders as well, because the mayor does this, the city council, the county commissioners all did the survey. So we engaged our elected officials as well in the process. Where did we go from there? We didn't really jump into a business master plan type scenario. We saw issues, low-hanging fruit that we could tackle. We incorporated them into our Visit Cheyenne business plan and really started tackling some of these issues with our economic development partners, with our attractions. We didn't go after major, multi-year $20 million projects. We really tried to tackle issues that we could affect in the relative short term without significant expenditures of money. So we worked on our downtown. We added extra lights to our downtown square. We added an ice rink in the winter months with our downtown development group. We helped raise money with the city of Cheyenne to create a downtown splash pad water feature, and Visit Cheyenne actually was the fundraising entity to raise $300,000 in our community doing that. We created more events like a restaurant week that Visit Cheyenne totally controlled, but we also partnered with other groups to be the marketing and fiscal agent and the infrastructure for events like a new marathon, a Cheyenne Marathon. We had community celebrations like our 150th anniversary. We created a Ticket to the Arts pass for all of the arts organizations in town where you can buy tickets under one combined pass. We created a new attraction with providing tours to the Union Pacific Steam Shop, the train steam shop here, where you can see the steam engines. So we really took some targeted efforts to try to change the game. We also started advertising locally. Usually DMOs primarily advertise externally, but we started advertising more in our own market to engage our citizens and engage our young people. So those are efforts we all took as a result of the first effort back in 2015. Then this fall, we did it again. We replicated the survey in 2018, which is somewhat scary because it's a totally different sample, or many of the people are new people on the boards of directors of your economic development agencies, your city council, etc. So we did the survey again, actually increased the number of survey responses, and it was quite gratifying to say that we did move the needle. We improved we improved many of our individual scores, but we improved both our community alignment score and our destination strength score. And many of the places the needle moved were areas we particularly worked on. For instance, events, downtown, places like that. You actually saw the needle move. And one of the most gratifying things were the youngest people in our survey, those under the age of 30, ranked us highest of any age group. So previously that hadn't been the case, but we seem to have changed some perceptions of our youngest members of the community.
That's fantastic, Darren. And, a couple comments. First of all, you've been unbelievably busy. And I think it's fantastic that you've been able to accomplish so many things in a few years. And, just what a great testament to your leadership and, your ability to go back to your board and say, these are my main accomplishments over the past several years. So just a great way to keep track of the different things that you're doing. So congratulations on that. You also mentioned local advertising. We've found repeatedly in destinations of all sizes, community engagement is just such an area, a challenge for people. And as you go through and review the future study, it's critical that collaboration, making sure that you're engaging your locals, that they're aware of the value of tourism, that you're using them as raving fans and to generate word of mouth. It's just so critical. So kudos to you for seeing that as well. Darren, I want to ask you about, what's your opinion on this new revised program to address some of the concerns and some of the opportunities and challenges that smaller destinations face? I mean, Small Destination Next, how do you feel about, what we're trying to do and being able to benchmark yourself against other smaller destinations?
I think this is a very positive step. I think the early surveys were, I don't want to say biased, but they leaned a little bit in favor of the big destinations because of those features of the smaller communities that we just don't have, like you said, airports, international money changing, we can't host international sporting events, etc. So by not just removing them from the questionnaire, but by also allowing us to compare ourselves with one another, I think it will give us all a much fairer view of how we're doing in smaller destinations. So, Kathleen, I'd love you to run our numbers again against our peers as opposed to the Austins and Pittsburghs of the world.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that feedback, Darren. Marsha, what are your thoughts on the new program?
I will just echo Darren's comments. I think we might have been part of that change process. We certainly found when we first started looking at the survey questions that it did seem skewed towards larger destinations and things we didn't have. But I will say that Jordan was great in working with us. We went through kind of question by question and made some tweaks, and that was really helpful. But I think the idea that you're being able to compare yourself to a peer group that is dealing with some of the same issues you are is greater value.
Oh, good. Thank you. Jordan's getting some shout outs. He's our analyst and he's our master when it comes to surveying. So he is also available on this call. If we get any technical questions, we're trying to answer as many questions as possible, and I know we have some time. If we don't get to your question, we will certainly respond to you. And if you have more technical question, or you just like to schedule a call just to really get into the analytics of this, I'm happy to do that. So thank you so much for your time. And Kate, I'm going to turn it back to you to take questions from our audience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kathleen, and thank you to our panelists. What a diverse background and just so much great just thought process behind this and telling your story. So I'd like to go ahead and unmute a panelist that an attendee that just asked a question. We have Michael Bradford from Travel Marquette. Let's see if we can hear Michael. Michael, can you hear us and speak? Okay, I don't think Michael has a microphone set up to his computer, so I'll go ahead and pitch the question. But Michael is asking, what was the message of the local advertising?
I assume you're talking to me here in Cheyenne. What we did is we allowed our normal advertising that pitches our attractions and events. We basically allowed some of our regional advertising slip into the market so that people were seeing positive messages about our community. We also did a small campaign, kind of a radio campaign, where we made fun of what all locals say, that there's nothing to do in Cheyenne. So we actually used that as the tagline and ran a radio campaign talking about events that are happening each month. So it was customized by each month, listing things to do, and said go to our calendar events for even more activities. So we let our local advertising, our regional advertising slip into the market, and we did a little bit of more customized work advertising local events.
Excellent, thank you. Let's see if we can unmute Karen. Karen, are you there? Maybe getting a little bit of feedback, but Karen is with Explore Hocking Hills, and her question is, how much lead time do you need to begin the Destination Next process?
I'll take that one. Essentially, once we, once we finalize everything, we send you the questionnaire immediately. So, from the time that we sign the contract, we can send you the contract the next day, or we can send you the survey the next day, and just start working with you to, fill in the name of your destination, to make sure if there's anything in there that does not pertain to your destination, that we remove it. And again, just modify as much as we need to. So sometimes that's a very fast process. When I went through it, I probably did it, I don't know, maybe hour and a half. We've had other people who really wanted to get on the phone with us and walk through it, and we're more than happy to do that. So basically that happens, and then we get that survey out, it's launched. And you can do everything. You could squeeze it in 2 months if you wanted to. When I did mine, I did it in 2.5 months. I think Marsha mentioned she did hers in 2.5. But essentially, the most work that it really takes on your behalf in the beginning is, number one, looking at that survey, which is already written. You're just editing it. Number two, compiling all of your lists. So hopefully in your CRM, you have a pretty good database. But again, we work with you in terms of talking about who you want to send this to. And then we want to schedule your workshop. We want to make sure that we get a facilitator scheduled, that we have your workshop, and that you can start promoting that to make sure that your board can be there, that you've got critical team members there, and whether or not you want to make it more of a community-wide event.
Great. I think, Kathleen, this question ties really closely to the time turnaround to participate. This is, how much manpower does it take? And maybe if Darren and Marsha, you can comment on this, because we know a lot of our attendees on this call and in this group have very small staff.
This is Marsha. I'll be happy to start on that. My staff is, 3 people, 4 people sometimes. So it really was, as Kathleen said, it was primarily me with my support staff. But what was helpful was engaging others that are either on our board or our chamber leaders in different towns. We also got ourselves on speaking programs for the chambers. So we would go and speak to the chamber and tell, one of their luncheons or something about this, and invite people to take the survey. So, staff time, it was primarily myself with some added support, but then engaging others to help carry the message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Darren. I would say the same thing. It was me, but it does require work. I mean, if you just send the survey out once and maybe twice, and you only get 30 respondents, I mean, Jordan will tell you this. You'll see that data. You'll see who's responding and who's not responding. So it is incumbent upon you as a community leader to talk it up, to call people. If the mayor's not responding, to give her a call, to talk it up at the chamber, at city council, etc. So you really do need to do some legwork, but I would echo Marsha in saying it's relatively minimal. It's kind of a relatively easy process because the infrastructure that Next Factor has put in place is available to you.
Mm-hmm. And if I could, Kate, if you don't mind, if I could just add two quick things based on what I heard. One, just talking about, getting that information out and getting responses in. If we have a destination that is struggling with getting responses, we have email copy for you. We give you suggestions in terms of how to further engage. And Marsha mentioned that, she went out and she presented to various community leaders. This doesn't stop with your destination or with your strategic plan. It doesn't stop with your workshop. When I was at Lancaster, I took the results and basically I went on the road with this. So again, it's another reason why it's such a great community engagement tool. I didn't go through question by question and get into the minutia, but I wanted the community to know, what those results were and what our feedback was and what we were doing about it. So in addition to presenting them at our annual meeting to our membership, I went and spoke to the chamber and EDC and basically any type of rotary that would take me to come in and do a presentation. So it's just a great way to get out in the community. Yes, that part was definitely a lot of work because it was me doing it, but just a really valuable process.
Kathleen, I think a question that, knowing that you went through this first person as well, and for all three of you, what are some suggestions that all of you have when it comes to selling this whole process to your board?
I can start. It wasn't much of a sell, and looking at our budget, oh my goodness, looking at our budget and the cost for this, it was very cost effective. The one thing that helped me was when I was talking to my executive committee about this. I'm sure a lot of you have executive committees and you do separate executive committee meetings. I actually had Paul call in and just talk a little bit about the process and answer questions, and I've done the same thing. So for me, it was relatively easy. You just need to make sure you can let them know, what are you going to do, what are the takeaways, and then what are you going to do as a result of them.
Marsha or Darren?
Yeah, this is Marsha. I would really echo that. I think I got my board on board quickly with it, and it really, when we looked at what we were trying to achieve and what we were trying to take on, and we found someone that was very experienced and had a great track record, and it was we felt like it was great value for money. So it was not a hard sell to my board. And then with that, I think it was a matter of informing people, why we were taking this on, but there was a real appetite for it, and the cost was very reasonable for what we were trying to do.
And this is Darren. I would just echo those statements. I didn't think it was very difficult to sell this idea. When you talk about the benefits of international benchmarking, the fact that we're going to be able to compare ourselves with so many people and have such detailed information made it a relatively easy sell for us. It was no problem.
Amazing. Well, I think it's safe to say, everyone's takeaway and the results and impressions left on the local stakeholders were really positive. Kathleen, any other comments or things you want to contribute to the group to close us out? I don't see any other questions coming in, but do want to make sure that all of our attendees know we're happy to connect you directly with this amazing team and panelists following the webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. My information is on the screen. Please feel free to email me. I'm happy to connect you with Marsha or Darren if you have other questions, if you'd like to speak with anybody else. And, again, just going through this process myself and being in your shoes, I don't like to be sold to. So, don't worry if you contact me. I'm not going to hound you. If it's a good fit for you, that's fantastic. If we can help you, that's great. If it's not a good fit and it's something you want to look at maybe further on down the road, that's fine too. Whatever works for you. Our goal is to help destinations develop, and it's been a really worthwhile process. And again, I think this is going to be fun. I think it's going to be fun to get some small destinations together and to see how your results differ and how you benchmark against sort of your own group. So just really excited about this. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity for Melissa for giving me this floor, and for Marsha and Darren for their time, and of course Kate for organizing everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone. Kathleen, just amazing job as always. And to our panelists, Darren and Marsha, thank you so much. Great to hear your experiences, and Melissa for leading us into this. And I will be sending directly to everyone the follow-up recording. And I also encourage you to join the conversation in our member forum, which is a member-only benefit where you're able to continue this great thought leadership. And we also have all of our past webinar topics and recordings listed there. And we'll be sending out the invite for next month. So thank you everyone so much. We look forward to hearing your feedback on this and hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks everyone. Take care.
Thank you everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.